Welcome to the first ever The Boys and I podcast with myself, Jeremy Azevedo, and...
Two of us were on our phones.
Well, I got to start the timer. Joel Rubin, late on the timer. So we're going to have an additional 25 seconds to this episode.
Great.
Thank God. Brett Hundley chiming in the third seat.
What up?
We're outdoors.
What's the name of this podcast again?
The Boys and I. So The Boys and I are happy to be presenting the first ever episode of The Boys and I on YouTube and on iTunes.
Yeah. And SoundCloud, maybe?
And SoundCloud, maybe. We haven't decided yet.
Recorded.
We've really planned ahead. Look,
we're coming to you live from Hollywood, California.
We are.
The hills.
Listen distantly
to the rushing sound.
The 101 freeway.
Don't listen too distantly. So here's the thing. We thought it would be fun to film outside, and I think it looks cool for those of you listening but not watching on YouTube. Let me describe the scene to you.
Paint a word picture with your mouth hole.
It's outside. There is a lot of greenery. It's a little dark. Brett is wearing camouflage. He's blended in. We can't see him actually.
Jeremy and I are both drinking from Tall Boys, whereas Joel has prepared a delicious, healthy,
a fizzy cucumber water with raspberries, because I'm on a Whole30 diet with my wife.
Oh boy.
Boy.
So that's a thing.
You want to get right into it?
Yeah. Again, I would recommend if you're if you're listening on headphones, stop doing that until we figure out how to record outside without having a lot of background noise, or listen in your car where there's a lot of noise outside already. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Here's some things I can guarantee are going to happen during this podcast. A helicopter will fly over us.
That'll be sick, though.
Billy is not going to bark, but she will step on a lot of leaves.
Billy is Joel's dog.
Oh, yeah. Billy is my nephew.
Billy's just running around.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen there in this podcast. And what are we doing? What's the purpose here? Why are we doing a podcast?
So, why does anybody do a podcast?
Making that money.
For the sweet ad revenue.
Outed.
Yeah, right. But this isn't a podcast, you see. It's a talk show.
Nice.
Oh, right.
Because we're too embarrassed to say that we're doing a podcast.
Tell our friends we're doing a talk show together.
But, yeah. So, we have a lot of conversations about how the three of us are all kind of in different life stages and kind of approaching life from different directions. We all have pretty different political views. We all have pretty different views on the entertainment industry. But we've all been kind of working together, like next to each other, around each other for, like, I don't know, eight years, something like that? Like a long time.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. So we all met at Machinima in, when was that? Like 2012?
2010.
2010. Jesus.
My God.
Christ.
So 7 years, really. It's been 7 years.
We round up.
Yeah, we round up.
By years.
But yeah, look, I mean, we're all of a certain age and a certain creative pursuits that we share, even though we have different, philosophies on things. When this was pitched to me, as you pitched it, you were like, listen, we got an optimist,
That's me.
a pessimist,
Or
well,
cynic.
yeah, that's
a cynic.
a cynic. Yeah,
a cynic.
yeah.
And
I'm
then-
open-minded, but I'm also very close-minded. I'm like right on that line between a Gen X and a millennial, where I have all of the cynicism of Gen X and also all of the entitlement of a millennial. So I'm truly awful. And
You're the grossest Reese's Pieces or Reese's Peanut Butter Cup of personality.
Right. Yeah.
Gross.
Beautiful. And then what was the third role that you thought you needed?
You're a nihilist.
We've decided.
Yeah.
Not having talked to Brett about it, that we're going to assign him the role of nihilist.
That's the way to go, though. If you're going to be assigned that, to not come to it on your own, just to have your friends tell you, like, we think of you as a nihilist, and you should be on this. What motivates that? For the purposes of this podcast.
Well, you've got a certain burn it all down attitude. You can't be bothered. The best way to explain Brett's nihilism is for Brett to tell the story of why he changed his Twitter name to Ratchet Pussy Megazord.
Just because there are so many things in life that you could just do to spite whatever's going on when you can't get verified on Twitter. So I just changed it to that because I knew there was no.
Right, burn it down. Who fucking cares?
Okay, all right.
So that's the
fair,
nihilism.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I started out as a nihilist, but then I sold out I'm like that. I'm like that pencil dick in SLC Punk who's like, yeah, man, I'm gonna get in there in corporate America. I'm gonna fuck it up from the inside. You know,
Nobody in this audience has seen SLC Punk.
Well, you should see SLC Punk.
I haven't seen SLC Punk.
Well, you haven't seen anything. We had to have an intervention for Joel once because he'd never seen RoboCop or Total Recall, so we had to watch them back to back.
Oh, well, we tried to watch them back to back,
Yeah,
but our friends just talked over them the whole time, thus negating the entire point of the movie afternoon.
I will say in your defense and my reality that nihilism it's hard to sustain. It's hard to build a life out of just spiting and being petty constantly. So you gotta get grounded. But we'll get into that. Jeremy's journey is worth exploring.
It's my favorite indie video game.
The only father here, which I think also puts a certain spin on like nihilism kind of losing its appeal.
Yeah, a little bit. It's hard to be. It's hard to live on the dark side when you have like a tiny little baby. My daughter is literally the most cheerful person I've ever seen, the most friendly person.
Right.
If you could personify like the most delicious candy, but the kind of candy that's not going to give you a cavity or diabetes, like really great candy, that would be Jeremy's daughter.
Yeah.
She's just a real bright ray of sun.
Yeah, so it's really hard to maintain that dark demeanor around such a pleasant person. She's like a reminder, that the basic human condition is goodness and light, and like something went wrong for me, somewhere along the way, and she's helping me kind of get back to the middle.
Would you say that I'm the your daughter of our talk show?
Yeah. Joel is like a delicious piece of candy that wouldn't give you cavities or diabetes, and is very expensive and sophisticated.
So you are of the mindset, though, that the default state is pure and joyness and light, because she's still too young to have reached the primal, feral state of what, like fucking...
Yeah.
How old is she now?
Well, she's a year and a half, so...
She's on the verge.
Yeah. Feral she is.
Yeah.
She walks around growling and shit. She's like, yeah, I don't know what that's about. She loves dinosaurs and like scary things, which is pretty metal.
But what's the point of this podcast? The point of this podcast is you got a perspective of men of a certain age. We're hanging out in the backyard. You can join in, get a different perspective. I know I'm always interested in other people, who might be ahead on their career ladder or ahead of certain moments. Like, again, I haven't had a kid. It's going to probably be a while for me. How it informs your decisions and your philosophy and the way you view the world is interesting to me. So hopefully this will be interesting to you, the listener.
And if it's not, we'll know.
And if it's not, it'll
never
be
get
Tell us in the comments below. It's funny. Like, I wasn't exactly the first person to have a kid, but I was probably one of the first people to get married. I've been married for almost 8 years, so
wow.
I'm definitely the narc of the group, as far as that is concerned. Because while all my friends are like going out like being single for like an additional decade, I'm like, well, it sounds cool.
You go out more. You went out when you were married more than I did when I was even when I was still single before I met my wife.
I was a damn party animal, man.
You are a damn party animal. Even now with your daughter, you proposed to have a meeting at a bar.
Where else would you meet at night?
Yeah.
A coffee shop?
Why do you have to have a meeting at night? Why can't you just have a meeting at a coffee shop during the day?
Because we got jobs, dude. That's like part of this whole thing.
Oh, right.
Look, the three of us have been working in the digital media business.
You can say the boys and I.
The boys and I. Sorry.
That's good.
The boys and I have been working in the digital media industry for a long time. I started at MySpace. I was a writer and a host and shit for like 3 years.
I did not know that.
Wow. I used to do all kinds of stuff. I had like a talk show called Taco the Town where I would interview celebrities at taco stands in their neighborhood because I couldn't get them to come to my shitty office. And it was really fun. But then I landed at Machinima and I kind of became more of a producer. I was there for a long time. Made all kinds of shows. Ended up going to Discovery. And recently that whole thing kind of exploded. So I'm kind of like floating around a little bit right now. But
now you're like Ronin.
Yeah.
You're like in control of your destiny. You have the experience of the samurai.
Are you seeking a new master?
I'm in an unbelievable.
It sounds wrong, right?
Seeking a new master. No, I'm not looking for like a dominatrix, dude.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my career next, because all of us are at a point where we've done a lot of stuff, and we know a lot of people, and there's options and opportunities, but there are potential dangers in that. You know, if you make the wrong decision, you can kind of fall off. If you make the right decision, it could be immensely profitable.
Yeah,
you know?
so I also worked at Michigan. I worked at Michigan for almost 5 years, and after that, I went obviously to Rooster Teeth, and then did Funhouse, and then after that, I went over to Discovery too. Worked on SourceFed, and then that exploded. And now I'm not currently working in digital. I'm working on a cable TV show, writing and producing a cable TV show right now. And I'm at a weird juncture in my. So you're at a juncture in your career right now where you are trying to figure out like what direction in digital media you want to go in.
If I even want to do that.
If you want to stay. And I'm kind of doing the same thing where I've been. I really love it. It's super fun, but I got this TV thing which is really interesting. I'm really enjoying a lot, and it's what I moved out to LA to do in the first place. I moved out to LA to be a writer on a TV show, and I had done that for a while. I was on G4 before I did Machinima, and now I'm doing it again, and it's great. It's fun. I don't know if it's going to continue or not, but we'll see. So I'm trying to also figure out which direction I'm going to go in, and I think a lot of what we're going to talk about on the podcast in terms of YouTube, the current state of YouTube, the adpocalypse, what's going on with these. We'll still call them MCNs for lack of a better word right now. But that's going to have, I think, a big impact on where my decision is going to end up too.
What did you, Jeremy? What was your original intent? Like he's saying, like, okay, he meant here to be a writer. Where did you start on that journey?
I mean, I came out here not really knowing what to do. I came about it in a roundabout way where I kind of wanted to do exactly what I am doing, but it didn't exist yet. I was just in college, like at that time where digital video cameras and everything sort of came into play, and I realized, I could do like 10 shitty movies for the cost of like one, like, 35 millimeter project, because we were shooting on film for the first like half of my school. The second half I spent making like weird short films and putting them up on all kinds of different places, and some of them would get a lot of views, and I'd be like, well, that's something, right? Like all these people watch it, and they'd be and the general consensus was like, no, that's trash. It's like not real. What are you talking about?
It's online,
that's not,
you idiot.
That's not a job. You got to get in film festivals and stuff, but all those guys were rich, man. you know, like it was like all these people that they'd spend $10,000 on their movie, and they'd spend like $400 per submission to get in all these film festivals, and I was like, what the fuck am I gonna do? So I came here, and of course there was no work. It took me a while to figure it out, but once I was actually doing it, I think I was really happy. But now I'm at a place where I want to do more, I think. The line between digital media and traditional media is becoming so blurry with Netflix and Amazon and Hulu, with MCNs, with SVOD platforms like Verizon and Samsung.
Explain what SVOD is, John.
Subscription
video on demand,
or OTT, over the top platforms. That's what kind of the current buzzwords.
So like Netflix or even Rooster Teeth First is an SVOD platform.
Right. It says like Verizon, like Go 90.
Yeah. Like, full screen's got a thing. Hulu, obviously. Yeah.
And of course, there's still all the traditional outlets, but even from a feature film perspective, there are all these smaller studios that are sort of doing low budget movies that are kind of genre based, but they're getting real filmmakers and taking it seriously, and they're actually making money. So there's a little bit of a cultural renaissance going on right now. And even video games are starting to become a little bit more artistic. Like the last 3 video games I've played have been Resident Evil 7, which is basically like the first half of the game is like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Right. Firewatch, which is I think really has a lot of depth to it. Oxenfree, Gone Home. There's just so many interesting stories being told there too, and that's something I think we all kind of were hoping would happen, where Machinima, where that convergence would happen sooner.
There was a real dangerous time in video games though, where like cutscenes, everyone was really excited about like fucking cutscenes telling your story and not telling the story in the game. But I think that you're right that there are games now, even like really small games like Papers, Please, like can tell a story really, like a really deep story in a through the gameplay, not just through like traditionally narrative cutscenes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if VR is going to take off, it's going to have to figure out how to do that a little better as well.
Well, I feel
It's so gimmicky right now.
yeah, I think that the VR AR conversation maybe is. I definitely want to get into that because I have strong opinions, but we can do that for another podcast.
What about you, Brett? Like, what's your bag right now?
I went to film school, came out to California, was a PA bitch for 4 years, just spelling trash on myself, whatever. I didn't care. I got out of a relationship, just did not want to. I didn't give a shit about anything. Came out to LA, and yeah, I don't know. It's weird. I did not mean to end up at Machinima. I was like between gigs on like a Spike TV show where I was doing casting for Deadliest Warrior. And I was just playing a lot of World of Warcraft alone in my apartment, just like on unemployment. And then the call for
which
that
became a job requisite.
Yeah, apparently.
Strangely.
Who knew?
Same,
The timing was perfect.
It's the same thing. I knew somebody from G4 who was at Machinima who said, we're starting a channel for World of Warcraft. Why don't you come run it? And I was like, I don't know. And I remember I got to Machinima and I talked to Albert Iskander about, like, what is this whole online video thing? And he told me that they were intentionally down-resing their videos for Respawn so it looked like it was homemade, and I got so irrationally angry at the idea of making your production look shittier.
How would you even down-res your video at that time?
I don't
like,
know.
weren't we still
Just
just
everything
tape?
uploaded in like 360p with like
No,
identical
no,
thumbnails. You go back and look at Realm, it's like all of the uploads.
Well, that's
were,
because
like,
all of the directors were sending in their whatever they were
even
capturing
the stuff
on.
we shot, like
I think directors is kind of like...
That's what we called them.
Yeah.
I can't not say that.
It's a bit of a stretch.
We'll have to be careful not to get lost in the minutia of our, machinima subculture that no one's like, what is Respawn?
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's not, okay.
People,
Whatever.
I think people know what Respawn is. Nobody knows what Machinima Realm is.
Some people know, remember Respawn. Anyway, so, yeah, and then it's been, Machinima was like 6 years, and then I also left, and I was like, I knew some YouTubers who wanted to start a new YouTube project, but it's like you guys do, where it's like, you take that step away from like, okay, here's a steady paycheck, let's go be the owner of something, or let's go be in charge of something, and obviously that's can be very scary. But yeah, doing that mostly, and then a little bit of mercenary work.
I think that's really exciting, and I think that you're really lucky to have the opportunity to own something. I'm really actually jealous of anyone who takes that leap and does it especially before you have the kind of responsibilities, like whether you're married or have a kid or have a house or whatever it is. Like now's in your life, I think, the right time to do it, and like the gamble on it is going to be positive no matter what, almost, because either you're going to be incredibly successful and you'll make a ton of money and it'll be, make really great content, it'll be a lot of fun, or even if you fail, everything that I've read says that no one takes you seriously unless you have a failure. Yeah, and having a failure is like great.
You're supposed to fail, like,
learn more from it.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Like however many businesses fail for every success. Just to break it down in reference to what you're saying, though, Jeremy married, has a kid. Joel married, no kid.
No kid.
Dog though.
Dog and
great dog.
Dog in a house.
Dog in a house. Homeowner. Me drifting on the wind. Piece of refuse. No wife. No children. Just.
But you're not a nihilist.
I'm not a nihilist. No. I strive for that. Being petty and spiting things, I think, especially in response to the way things could be, is like a very specific. Maybe that's a specific brand of nihilism where it's like you have things you strive for, but then when it falls short, you're just like, the system is corrupted. So, anyways, but okay, this is pretty good.
So let's talk about YouTube then.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was some pretty big news today that I think is pretty interesting.
My tall boys on crunching.
Look, we're outside. The birds are tweeting.
Just woo.
Let it loose, man.
Yeah, the sound's fucked up. Okay, Brett. Like,
someone listening with headphones heard that aluminum can. Okay, I'm sorry.
And now they got all thirsty.
Tecate, Michelada Diablo. If you want to sponsor, Jeremy and I are both enjoying this.
It's pretty tasty. It's a little spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
good.
I'm jealous. The second jealous. I'm jealous.
Joel is the kind of guy that will go on a juice fad diet for a month, which is what's happening right now. Well, his
fuck you! You did this diet too. You piece of shit, Jeremy Azevedo. You went on this diet and you extolled its virtues so, like, loudly that now I have to be forced onto this diet.
What's the pitch on this 30-day cleanse.
It's Whole30. It's not a cleanse. I'm like
Excuse me,
I'm still
sorry.
eating lots of stuff. I can't have dairy, legumes, or alcohol.
You
What
can't
did
even.
legumes ever do?
You
to
can't
man?
even have quinoa.
No,
Which
no
is
grains.
grains.
No grains.
Yeah.
That's right.
Why? What's the point?
Because I gotta reorganize my gut biome or something.
Yeah, it's some bullshit.
I
Like,
do think that it's. a
I was
little
like
hooey.
80% compliant.
Oh, I'm doing it.
You know, my wife wanted to do it, and so I was like, okay. It was like okay for her. I lost like 15 pounds. If anything, it made my wife upset at me because it just totally worked for me. I don't know, weirdly.
You think it was the booze side of it, or was
I
like,
think it was probably the not drinking.
Yeah.
Alcohol it's so many empty calories in
Yeah.
this thing.
and you just
That's not
can't
and
empty
right?
calories. There's so many good calories in there.
They're
Calories
good.
that make you happy. Calories that numb the pain.
Oh. You're
Is
right.
that where you get your optimism from?
Yeah, man.
You drink it up.
Fucking wine fridge back there for making me sad.
But in both cases, the wife brought the idea forward. She's like, "Listen, let's try this. I'm gonna give it a shot. I need you to support me on this. Let's do it together."
It wasn't even like a request. I was just trying to like fit in, I guess.
fit in.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? Like
Yeah, yeah.
live with
You just
somebody,
watch her do it for
they're
a
sitting
month.
there
Yeah, you're
drinking
right.
fucking juice or whatever, and you're like, what are you gonna do? Like cook yourself up a steak? Like, you know?
You can have
I
steak.
guess you can have a steak.
I had a pork chop last night.
Yeah,
It was
you can
delicious.
Look, you can eat meat and vegetables you're a vegetarian,
Yeah, I'm
so you'd have a hard time with it because you'd be super fucking limited.
No, you'd be fine because you can have eggs. That's like
I just-
90% of your diet
but
anyway.
not cheese.
What are you gonna do?
Not
Like eat
cheese.
eggs like for breakfast, lunch, and dinner though?
Yeah, that's rough.
I was
You did for a while,
putting
I
down
think,
hard
didn't you?
boileds every morning, just
Gaston
sucking
over-
them down. Yeah.
So, what's the hardest part for you? Not drinking, I assume, probably.
Yeah, no, weirdly the hardest. Yeah, it's not drinking, but it's not in the way that you think it is. I mean, I love drinking.
Mm-hmm.
The hardest part is at the end of a meal, I need a button on the meal, and I don't have a sweet tooth. I don't need dessert, but at home at the end of my meal, I'll have a glass of wine or four, and
4.
that's what ends the meal for
A
me.
little digestion.
It's
Wow.
a few of them.
The tall boy took out my ability to pronounce
Digestive. This is
Yeah.
I'll have a few drinks at the end of a meal, and that's what that's when I'm done eating because I'm drinking my wine now. Well, I'm also drinking wine. It doesn't matter. But because I don't have that, the meal just sort of like tapers off slowly.
When your meal is horse shit though, like you're like glad to be done of it.
Like last night, because I also can't have dessert. I had half of a watermelon, but not one of those little personal watermelons. I had a 5-pound watermelon that I had half of last night, and I got up 4 times in the middle of the night to pee.
That sounds terrible.
I'm also peeing a lot more on this diet because you're drinking so much water.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That is healthy.
I got a real clean
Can't
run
deny
system.
that.
No, that's a good thing.
You ate half a
I
watermelon
ate
because
half
you
a
couldn't have dessert. Well, I wish you luck.
Yeah,
How far are you in? Like 11 days in?
I'm
you said?
11 days
you'll
in.
never make it.
I'm gonna be
You,
fine.
you've got to cheat.
I'm not gonna cheat. Well, I'm going on a little trip in 2 weeks, and I don't think I'm gonna cheat on it. I'm gonna try not to cheat on it, but
Yeah.
we're gonna be way out in the desert, and food options I think will be scarce and limited. So I got a plan for that.
I was doing this diet in February, and trying to find a place to take my wife on a date for Valentine's Day
Oh, no.
that has a compliant menu.
Where'd you go?
Was such a motherfucker.
Where'd you go? Because I need to go out with my
We
parents.
ended up
on
going
Thursday.
to like Black Market or one of those like fucking gastro pubs where they have just like those little share plates.
Yeah. You're
Like,
just I can eat
$8
this.
for like a quail egg. Shit. You know, like you know, they have stuff that works.
Yeah.
It was the only thing I could find that had a menu that wasn't like, you know, bread. There's
Yeah.
bread on everything.
Yeah.
People love bread.
You could do like you could go to a sushi restaurant and only get sashimi and then pay $400. That is a meal that you could do.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds great.
All right.
So we were
talk about YouTube.
wait, we were talking about
Fucking
about Maker.
Maker,
We were gonna start
right.
talking about Maker. So Maker is fucking gone, right? Like it's the Disney Digital Network.
For
Which
the
sounds,
truly uninformed, what is Maker?
Oh, right, yeah. So
Maker.
Maker's,
What was Maker?
Maker
was?
Studios was sort of like the disco version of Machinima to me, frankly. Like I hate to see them going through what they're going through, but it's crazy. Like it was so competitive back in the day.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
remember.
we we were there when we sort of inadvertently created the MCN because we wanted to put partners into our CMS, which means, at a time, it's content management system. At a time where nobody could monetize on YouTube and they were like begging YouTube to sign them up, we could just partner you and we could run you through our CMS and then you can get paid. And people were like, whoa, holy shit! And the question for YouTube was like, can we add this one to it? And they're like, yeah. Can we add this one to it? Sure. Is there a limit to how many we can add? And they're like, I don't think so. And so we like fucking got on the phone and we like called up like 1,000 people, and pretty soon we had this whole network, right?
Yeah.
Maker basically was like, I want a piece of that. But the difference was Maker never really had a focus. Like they were doing gaming, they were doing beauty, they were doing like vlogs, they were doing
Parent
everything.
stuff.
Yeah, like family, whatever. And we were just doing like basically dork shit. It was like gaming and like
fan films,
and kind of
Machinima itself is like you make movies in the video game.
It's a portmanteau of the words machine and cinema.
Oh boy.
Well, Red versus Blue, that kind of era of content. So
yeah, I mean, I saw it as sort of breaking down the barriers because I came here to make films and instead I was selling shoes, and then I like clawed my way into the business and I was like, oh, I can just like kick the wall down. I can let in all these people who are gonna make cool films.
Right.
And they did for like a year, and then they were like, oh, I can just record myself playing video games and like make 10 times more money.
There was a time when Machinima
So
had
that became a thing.
really some Jeremy was working on some amazing. Before I worked on Machinima, when I was still on Realm, there were a lot of like amazing weekend shows, animations, true Machinima fan films, stuff that and at the time we had the budget to do that kind of stuff, and so there was a limit. Like we couldn't give out $50,000 to people. But we were doing
it was. I mean,
we were doing $20,000
total
films.
though. Like for real, there was like millions of dollars going out the door.
Yeah, it was
and
pretty
like millions of
incredible.
dollars coming back in too. And I was like, at that time, I was militant about it. I thought it was the coolest shit ever. It was content that would never work in film and television, but it was content that was, to me and everyone else watching, really cool and really unusual and different and new. And I would go on panels and talk about it and stuff.
And it pissed off. Well, it also pissed off a lot of people because no one had seen this kind of content before in terms of using intellectual property that you didn't own. So even I mean, let alone the gameplay.
But the publishers were like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just selling more games.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna pay you to do it, but I'm not gonna stop you from doing it.
Some would.
Yeah.
Some would. Nintendo was not super happy, I think, with some of the stuff that was coming out.
Well, no, I don't know that they were unhappy with it. I think they were just like, oh, let me get in on that, But I mean, all of the like Activision, EA, whatever, like they were down for it. Maker, on the other hand, would just do sort of like the basic entry level version of every single vertical. So where Style Hall was doing like only fashion and beauty, Machinima was doing only gaming. There's other brands. There's like Dance On just doing dance. Most of those were like from the same investment company, basically.
Right.
Maker was just kind of all things, all people, and
there are pros and cons to that approach, though.
Well, the pros clearly outweighed the cons because I think a lot of the whole purpose of doing something like that is to see an exit, right? You're not gonna
explain what some of this stuff means. So a lot of these companies were started by these people in Silicon Valley.
Go on.
Some people in Silicon Valley who these venture capital funds who want to start a media company, and they see these as media companies, not tech companies for the most part. And the idea is that they were going to build these media companies, and then they were going to eventually sell them. That's your exit. So you would raise a ton of money. You would raise 20 or 50 or $100 million, and you would run these companies for a year and get what we called scale, which was for Machinima, that meant that we had, I think, at our peak, 30 or 40,000 channels in the network, and they were doing 3 or 4 billion views a month.
I remember when we took out an ad a week that just said 1 billion views, just like a full page ad.
We had a party. We had a 1 billion view party.
Yeah, we had a lot of parties.
Maker
We had a lot of parties.
Maker had, I think, at one point 60 or 60,000 channels in his network, and so they were doing billions and billions.
Just think about that for a minute. Think about what that means.
Well,
That's 60 or 70,000 individual people with YouTube channels that are in a net. I'm doing air quotes if you can't see what I'm doing.
So yeah, so I mean, and so the idea is that you have these big networks, in quotes, of 40,000 or 60,000 people, and these networks can theoretically leverage billions of views a month to advertisers. And the idea for these venture capital firms is that, great, now you've got these great big networks, they're doing billions of views. An advertiser is going to want to buy them, or a studio like Warner Brothers or Disney is going to want to buy them. And this really worked out well for Maker. Maker sold at the right time when there was still a lot of interest, a lot of money, and this MCN model, this network model, hadn't collapsed in on itself yet.
And why would someone like Warner Brothers want to make a purchase like that?
Any number of reasons. The market of people who are watching YouTube videos, it's a really prime demographic, young kids who don't watch TV anymore and who are really notoriously difficult to reach.
The short answer is it's cheaper than buying YouTube.
Well, it's cheaper, but it's
buying
hard.
A piece of YouTube.
It's hard to reach people via advertising, and so the idea is that they can advertise directly to the kids who aren't watching TV anymore through these channels.
I'll tell you why I think they would do it.
Yeah.
And this is like a slightly cynical reason, but
Can't wait.
so every one of these companies has a marketing division, and specifically they have a digital marketing division, right? So imagine that you have $300 million that you have to spend on digital marketing, right? Now let's imagine that you sort of like own, like maybe not fully, but you have an investment in, or maybe you do own it, a brand outside of your company that does digital content, right? Mm-hmm. You then push, some percentage of your digital marketing budget over 3 to 5 years into that company, and you basically take that money back on the back end. So like on the one hand, you're saying, well, I spent my budget, so my budget like stays static, right? I've spent my budget, I've delivered on the results, right? And then you turn right around and go, hey, my digital brand brought in X amount of dollars,
And if it's operating at a loss, then you get a tax write-off for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like even when I was at MySpace, this was years ago. It was like right when Fox Interactive Media made an acquisition, and I think they basically just like kind of added the scale of MySpace up against like IGN and some other shit, and they're like, look, everything's profitable, the numbers are crazy, they're bonkers, and then they like sold all their stock, and then they just like left it a wasteland, right? They just like pump and dump.
Yeah.
And I think that's what happened with Maker.
So
I can't think of any other reason for.
So Maker sold in.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So fast forwarding, Maker sells.
2014, is that when Maker sold?
I think it was 2014.
2014,
right?
I think.
It was a little bit of a blow to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Disney
steps
in.
Yeah.
And we're like, at Machinima, like. Ooh.
Yeah, because Machinima was so like frankly arrogant.
Yeah.
About our dominance at a certain time.
Certainly there was, from the leadership.
Yeah.
There's I mean, that's again, you could run an entire season's worth of podcasts on the rise and fall of Machinima specifically. I think.
Someone will write a book someday, but
yeah, there was definitely like a feeling of being untouchable for like a minute, where these other Maker was like just nipping at the heels. Yeah. IGN had one, Curse full screen
barely started.
Yeah. There so many, and they just were nowhere near where we already were by the time everyone else kind of got into it. So seeing Maker like meet and exceed what we were doing was pretty brutal, because we all had equity, and we were hoping
equity meaning we had stock options in the company, where if it sold, then theoretically we would get a payday if the company sold.
Which is one of the cool things about these businesses is that they do kind of provide a reason to care. For really everyone that gets on board.
Startup, it's a fun environment. You're all banking on that, like, okay, we're gonna get sold. Let's fucking do the work.
Here comes one of those helicopters, Joel.
It's a plane, guys.
No, that's a helicopter.
Yeah, that's a helicopter.
That's a helicopter.
Come on, bro.
Yeah. Get your act together, man.
It's like a plane to me, guys.
Have another michelada.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Yeah, but now the landscape, specifically the YouTube landscape, and to some extent the entire digital media landscape.
This is going to be the weirdest business podcast.
I was going to say, we're really like inside
of
baseball
all time,
right
by
now.
the way.
We got to like claw up to the surface level.
That's why I keep trying to like bring you down and make you explain what this stuff is.
If you're interested in the minutia
Well, because
MCN
this is all getting around to
subculture.
the Maker news for today.
Yes. Okay. So what was the news for today?
So the news for today is that Maker doesn't exist anymore. Basically, the Maker is now it's totally folded into Disney, and it's being called Disney Digital Networks, and they're combining it with a bunch of their other digital brands.
Because Disney took over.
Yeah.
And then they were kind of, it's like little like, okay, we're shifting this, we're going to drop this, these staff members, we're taking over, we're in control, we're making the decisions.
But they were still called Maker for the time being,
right?
As a separate brand, and now it's all going to be enveloped under the Disney Digital Network, and that doesn't mean like Polaris as Disney's will be Disney Digital's gaming brand, for example, and Oh My Disney.
I think that's the only one, though, right?
From Maker, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Well, because gaming is still, I think, the number 2 most popular vertical. No, maybe it's not anymore. Is gaming still number 2 most popular vertical on YouTube?
I don't know. I mean, it depends on what you classify.
Toy opening.
What's number 1? Music?
Kinder eggs
music,
and family vlogs and music, and there's a lot of different things that
YouTube's
are bubbling
a
up.
fucking mess.
It is a little bit of a mess. I feel like YouTube is just generally backsliding. And really kind of promoting vlogs and drama.
So and this is all part of the problem, is that YouTube, it's become apparent over the last, I'd say, 3 years or so, that YouTube really caters to the lowest common denominator, both in terms of viewer, content, and advertiser. Would y'all agree?
Yeah, I mean, they always have.
But there was a time early on in the MCN game when we were actually, and I think some other MCNs were, trying to actually revolutionize YouTube. And I think YouTube was trying to, too, with some of these YouTube Red shows that were, like, actually high production value.
YouTube Red shows?
Yeah, some of the YouTube Red shows have high production values.
I've never seen a revolutionary
Yeah, I've not seen one
only
revolutionary
No,
show.
not in terms of the idea or the content, but only in terms of the gatekeeping of who can make content, who your talent is, and how it gets distributed. That was, to me, that was at least the promise of YouTube and digital media in general. Y'all disagree.
Cynic.
That was the promise for digital media. I'm not saying I'm not saying YouTube Red is great. In fact, I don't subscribe, and I think a lot of the programming on YouTube Red is garbage.
I saw a meme that was like, YouTube. Oh, it was H3H3 posted a meme that was like, thanks for the free YouTube Red subscription.
Yeah,
don't need ad block if there are no ads on YouTube or whatever. It's like,
I mean, it doesn't even need the content. If it's just like, if it's Google Play and ad-free YouTube, that's sufficient. But like, people don't need to pay for that, and the content, we already have learned this lesson time and time again. We learned it with there was like this whole funding thing that led to Machinima Prime and SourceFed and Nerdist and all these channels that like I'm naming channels that still kind of like existed up until at least recently, but they're all gone, right? Like, except for 1 or 2, right? And this is out of hundreds, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And it was like this whole big smoke screen to make it look like it's about content, but really they don't fucking need it. Like, they just need like cat videos and like Vine reposts and like
that's what they need. But I genuinely do believe that there was somebody at YouTube who said, if we can fund these people to make higher quality content than cat video, because we are in 2011, 2010, they were known as the cat video platform, and they said we don't want to be known as a cat video platform.
Let's bring creators, create premiere
content,
air quotes.
Yeah.
But as soon as an advertiser looks into what those creators are and do, they pull out, right? So it's like, they now have established this whole thing about creators, but the creators are not really creators like how we like intended it to be when we're pushing for filmmakers and animators and people that are doing shows. It's vloggers. It's basically just people. It's like it's
with
this whole
shitty talk shows where they talk about YouTube.
Yeah, it's like a very it may as well just be reality television. It's just voyeuristic.
Well, this is the lowest common denominator, though. Like, this is obviously this is what the greatest number of people on YouTube want to watch. You can't train people to watch high quality content. They'll watch what they're going to watch. It's the same reason that Kardashians and a lot of shit is really popular. Housewives is popular on TV. So that's the lowest the lowest common denominator for creators is making vlogs and video gaming. It's the lowest barrier to entry. It's very easy to do. You don't need to have any expertise to hook up. You really don't need to have any expertise to hook up a camera and a microphone
and it's
to like
accessible,
sit in front of
right? Yeah. You have to be like, what is Lincoln Red's concept for their YouTube Red show? Well, I like watching them almost puke, eating shit,
That sort of bums me out because those guys started out as filmmakers. Like I thought of that, like I knew of them because of those commercials that they would do. They would do these insane commercials for like just local businesses, and they were fucking
Did you Chuck
awesome.
Testa? Did they do Chuck Testa?
Yeah, I think so.
I think they did Chuck Testa.
Yeah, like they were just, I don't know, super talented. They don't really do much of that anymore. It's just so much easier and so much more profitable to do what they're doing now, which is, you know, it's good for what it is. Better than everyone else's version of that.
There are still some great channels though. There's still like Corridor Digital still makes real content. I think that fucking nope, it's gone now.
I mean, I like the Raka Raka. The Raka Raka is like fucking bonkers. Like their action and it's pretty violent. These guys, before anyone had ever heard of them, they did a Ronald McDonald sketch where they fucking rolled a car and set a guy on fire. Like, it's bananas. They destroy their house in every single episode. They're like bursting through walls like the fucking Kool-Aid Man. They're crazy.
Yeah. So these people still exist on YouTube.
But they're like genuinely good filmmakers and actors, and they do really cool VFX.
I think a lot of musicians that are on YouTube, like the original YouTube musicians, people who make music videos for YouTube, not like, I don't know, fucking Justin Bieber uploading a music video, but like people like that are the high quality content providers that YouTube wanted the entire platform to represent. But it's never going to be that. It's never going.
So what's the new problem? So it's like, this is like a really like patchwork narrative we're building here. But so do you want to explain Adpocalypse? So the very creators that you're saying, like, well, they're still here. Yeah. They've weathered all these other things. Now what's the problem?
So I explained this actually on Dude Soup a couple weeks ago, which is the Funhouse podcast. But Adpocalypse, from my perspective, and Jeremy probably knows a lot about this too, from my perspective, Adpocalypse came from two different directions. One is from the side of advertisers realizing what channels they're advertising on, like seeing where their ads are running and freaking the fuck out about it and then pulling away from YouTube. And that's and the other side of it is what's called it's the slow death of what's called programmatic advertising. So prior to Adpocalypse, and this would have been in October or November, I started reading all these articles about how advertisers were not happy with the results from programmatic advertising, which is a fancy way of saying there's a robot at YouTube that advertisers will give money to, and say, I want to advertise to young males aged 18 to 36 who are interested in sports, gaming, and movies. And YouTube's robot will say, great, I know 300,000 channels that do sports, gaming, and movies, and I'm going to put your ads on all those channels. And advertisers weren't seeing a lot of results from this, and so they were starting to realize that this approach of mass seeding their ads across YouTube was kind of a waste of money, honestly. Like, you can count impressions, and that's all well and good, but if that doesn't translate into results for your company.
The MCNs were promising that years ago. They were saying, if you advertise on YouTube just in general, you're never going to get the sort of like shallow but deep scale that you're looking for with these particular niche categories that we have.
Right. Well, and so partially that's because, you know, this is like a bunch of tech media bros running these MCNs promising you, hey, like I swear your ads are going to get seen, as opposed to like
false promises of machinima.
Well, and Google, for better or for worse, like AdSense, AdWords have been around forever, for a long time, for 10 years now, and I forget which one is YouTube and which one is web, but one is one of the other. And people trusted that their results, that their robot would send the ads to the right places, and they haven't. And so advertisers were back in late fall, early winter, starting to pull out of this programmatic advertising. And this all happened at the same time as this Wall Street Journal article about PewDiePie, which is a totally separate subject, and advertisers realizing, oh, I don't know if I love some of these channels. I don't have direct oversight. When you're an advertiser, and 20 years ago, you would buy an ad on NBC on Thursday night, and you know that it's going to run on Seinfeld. You know what Seinfeld is, and you know how much you're paying for it. You know who's going to see it. And that was not, and this is not what happens with this robot. Like, it just seeds out these ads across hundreds of thousands of channels. And so when advertisers started looking to these channels, they would get freaked out and they started pulling.
Yeah, it may as well just be a banner ad for what it is.
Right.
And maybe if they were just selling direct to like certain top YouTubers, it might be better. And I don't know. I think that's what the MCN's promised to do.
Right.
But the response from YouTubers is interesting because they definitely have a sense of entitlement to it. That the ad revenue, the fucking insane 6 and 7 figure ad revenue that they're getting for doing a daily vlog or whatever, is justified and owed to them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just it's supply and demand. It really is the advertisers' ball game, and we're all just kind of playing in it. There was a time where nobody made money on YouTube, and they made content because they wanted to make content, and they felt like they had something to say, and that's what it was about. It isn't about that anymore. I think it's more about the money than it is about the content and the sort of
people influenced by the existing businesses and the successes they've seen. But then also, like, YouTube's just fucking shit at communicating. So it's like, even like to your point, absolutely, like, oh, the expectations and entitlements, but then it's like, well, if it's not communicated to you and the rug is just pulled out from underneath your feet, like. And that's like time and time again. Like even now, like today, YouTube has like this upload. It's like, oh, now there's dark mode for viewing. It's like you're not even zero things.
It's not what people were asking.
No matter how big you
all.
are, you still get it all the time. Like we've been through it a million times.
Yeah.
But that's you're building your business on somebody else's platform.
Right.
What's interesting is that
like it's crazy to think that they're gonna call like every single one of the millions of people that are ego casting on their platform and tell them like, hey, Brett, just so you know, we're making a change to our platform that really kind of more is designed to affect the millions of people uploading fucking cat videos that we're just running scale ads against and generating billions of dollars. But hey, you might see like $1,000 pay cut, right? They're not going to do that. It doesn't matter to them.
I don't mean on like a personal level, but even like setting the tone of the culture and like what's happening or whatever, or addressing it at all, of being like, look,
I think the culture is a myth. Okay.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And look, I think you're right.
I think they hand select people and go you.
Yeah, they
right?
knight fucking creators.
And if that person isn't working out anymore, they're fucking gone, and they can just point at somebody else and be like, you now.
Any day, like this, like, oh, creator boycott. It's like everyone can fucking boycott. They will knight 10 new people, drive them up to stardom.
Every time they do it, everybody that's new, because everybody watching also has a YouTube channel, is going to go, if it happened to them, it could happen to me.
Yeah.
And so they're not like they're never going to stop.
It's
uploading.
a dream factory.
It was always a mistake.
In terms
cutting
of
everything on one platform. Yeah.
In terms of messaging changes to the platform, you're right that like you shouldn't expect a call from YouTube, but video game companies, create content that is consumed by millions and millions of people, and ongoing games that aren't just like a single release, but they have online matches. They have an online component to it where the game's getting continually updated, or if it's an online-only game like an Overwatch where you're only playing really online and the game continually evolves. These game companies are really good about putting out patch notes. And
I get patch notes from like my fucking mobile games that are more in detail
than
what I get from YouTube.
So this is my point.
When
and
I'm running Discovery's business.
And the patch notes are super detailed, and they will say stuff like, I'm playing live Overwatch right now, but like, as an example, on this Overwatch patch, we've adjusted Soldier 76's Helix rockets. They were doing too much damage. Soldier players can expect to see like a 7% reduction across the board in terms of their damage output.
Filthy Franks can expect to see 200% less damage.
I don't think that it's so outrageous to expect YouTube to put out, and these game companies will put out patch notes weeks in advance. They'll have beta testers testing what their patch will do, and then they respond to how the beta testers interact with their platform.
I think
with the game. That's what's
like
the question about YouTube is that YouTube is such a closed-off system that they don't allow people to test out what's going to change.
It's like if all the players wrote the patch notes. They're like, you know what, you guys put together your own list, and we're like, Soldier sucks dick now. Bastion's retarded.
But you joke about that, but to a certain extent, a lot of game companies do take into account user feedback, and so they will say like, not just an Overwatch. Whether it's League or whether it's World of Warcraft, they'll say, we've gotten a lot of player feedback that X aspect of X character or X class is overpowered right now. We've looked into it and we agree.
Are you like right by a fucking police station or like a reach center or something? Because this is like the 5th helicopter that's flown overhead.
Universal City is right there, and I assume it's celebrities going to Harry Potter World.
It's Tuesday night in Los Angeles.
I buy it.
Yeah.
Shit's crazy.
Anyway, like
no, look, you're right. And like Blizzard could teach a master class in terms of like
community
balancing
interaction.
Yes, absolutely. End of story.
And so to say that you shouldn't expect YouTube, no, I should expect YouTube to do that because video game companies do this all the time. Their product, to me, in terms of balance, is a lot like any tiny tweak massively changes how a game is competitively played. And the same can be true for YouTube, except for it's somebody's livelihood. And like I agree that it doesn't seem on the surface like a vlog should be worth as much. A vlogger should be making as much money as they are, but it's only worth as much money as an advertiser is willing to pay them. And now we're seeing advertisers pull out for sure, but for that amount of time, advertisers are willing to pay it, so the content was worth that much money.
Do you think it would help more if like Blizzard's whole thing was like there were always like certain personalities that really represented it, right? Like Ghostcrawler would speak or whatever, but it's like YouTube doesn't have that. Even within like their staff, like might be well known, where it's like there's no one stepping up to be those personalities and like address those comments directly, right? Like,
they should just hire vloggers that have fallen off as like their community managers.
They absolutely should.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah,
right.
I feel like they have bigger fish to fry. Like the reality of it is, there's nowhere to share YouTube videos, and people don't hang out on YouTube. So building your audience on YouTube is so difficult. Like it's almost fucking unbelievable how much easier it is to get millions of views on Facebook. And it's like...
Well, because you can actually share on Facebook.
I remember
people listen to shit. Like, people actually participate in the sharing community of Facebook.
Speaking as, like, someone with an active YouTube channel right now, right? Like, the YouTube revenue thing obviously hit us, and, you know, we've got things on other platforms, but it's like I get more pitches to do Facebook live streams than I've ever gotten before.
Yeah.
And now, more than ever, like Cow Chop, our YouTube entity, is partnered with Rooster Teeth. And it's like, oh, well, let's go to their platform where we are in control of things, where they've got a sales team, where you're not the mercy of whatever.
You guys are really lucky. Rooster Teeth has got one of the best business models, and it's partially because super smart people running that company. They have a really dedicated fan base who loves what they like, the content they put out, and the personalities that are on the content. But the timing that they had was just perfect. There are a very few websites that are destination websites still, and you and I have talked about this, Jeremy. And those websites are websites like Rooster Teeth, College Humor, although they're falling off a little bit right now. Funny or Die is
still does good. And
it still does. Great. It still does pretty okay, but they're not as high as they used to be. Funny or Die still does really well.
Do they still do well? I thought they'd like fallen off.
Yes, from their high for sure, but they all still do relatively well, and they're still sufficient. You know, they still exist, and if you look at when all these websites were launched, they were all launched between the end of the .com bubble burst in 99, 2000, and the rise of YouTube, which, although it started before 2007, YouTube really started to take off in 2007, and that sweet spot, that like 6 or 7 year sweet spot, absolutely was the right time to launch a destination website, because you were able to train people to go to your website before anything else existed. Facebook existed, but they weren't doing videos at the time. You know, there was just nowhere else to go except for a destination website. And so the fan communities, and that's a key component of this, is that all these different websites also have, and Newgrounds is another one, have these fan communities of like creators, of super fans, of, you know, it's for lack of a better word, a circle jerk of people who love the stuff that's going up there.
You've got to be able to do all of it, though.
You do. Like, you have to have the tech.
If you just have a website, like Newgrounds, that never really had their own shit on the other platforms.
Legs, right?
No, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they do for their business, honestly, but you know, you kind of got to be able to you got to be able to hedge your bets on multiple platforms right now. Yeah. Facebook is a smorgasbord, but that gravy train can't go forever. You know, Snapchat is really interesting right now. It is genuinely a unique experience, I think, like from a content perspective. Like trying to make shows and pilots for Snapchat is interesting because of the format and like the style in which it has to move and the interactivity of it. And you feel like
it's a fresh experience when you're participating in it because it is so like you're like, oh.
But it's also like,
but no one has made a great Snapchat native show yet.
Well, yeah, and if you're trying to do scripted narrative stuff, it's like how do you even begin to try to imagine how that would work there? Maybe if you think about it from like a gamified perspective, you know, it's possible, but you know, it's no one's really cracked it yet. But there's definitely an interest when you're valued at, you know, several $1 billion. Right, like there's a lot of motivation to figure that part of it out, because they can't just be like the same as Instagram, which will soon be able to do everything that they can do from like a social media perspective.
But neither of them are really pushing the platform as far from like a creator perspective, where I think like But my favorite thing about Snapchat is like I'll be like, oh, I can make like little movies or whatever, and that they're throwaway content, but it's like there's not any tools and all. It's like, oh, here's a new filter, here's a new like.
Well, because Snapchat says that it's not a content or media company, it's a technology company.
Right.
That's the problem, or a camera company, whatever they're saying now.
But like, again, I think that would be the difference that separates it from like Instagram or something. It's like, oh, well, I have these tools available to me or whatever.
We're running a little over time. We didn't even get to Fire Festival, which would have been fun.
Yeah, we went in. I would say we went in
real deep,
deeper than would normally happen on this
talk
show.
It's okay because we'll see what your tolerance, you the listeners, tolerance is for the deep cuts.
This was really a special case because it's like, look, we've obviously worked on this platform for X years.
And we'll return to the conversation.
We will return to this conversation. But
well, yeah, today was just really big news, just in general.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff going on in the digital media industry right now, but Maker sort of ascending beyond what a lot of the other MCNs, multi-channel networks, were reaching, and then sort of just being absorbed and assimilated into Disney.
Officially today, the
and
Disney
reduced.
chest burster
Disney
came out
digital networks.
Yeah.
I mean, we literally just came from the implosion of Discovery Digital Networks, and here's DDN again.
Yeah. Where one
Mach
falls.
2.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's crazy, and Machinima never quite reached its full potential. Maker has now kind of been there and then sort of been absorbed into this larger company. There's a lot of questions about what's going to happen next, so that it's kind of at the top of our mind right now a little bit, I think.
Machinima was definitely like Warner Brothers, like eating half of a sandwich, kind of putting it down, finally deciding like, well, I paid for the. I mean, I guess I might as well finish eating the sandwich.
But it's like a couple days later, and
Yeah.
neither
The
side
mayo
enjoyed
is, like,
it.
soaked into the
neither
bread.
side enjoyed. Yeah, it's just like, oh god, it's like whatever. Equity there was not great.
But yeah, in future podcasts, I think we'll talk a little bit more about sex and relationships.
Yeah.
We'll talk about more business stuff if you guys are interested in hearing
Politics.
about inside baseball, politics.
Life as 30-something
in
dudes.
Los Angeles, man. Whatever, dude. I'll be drinking eventually again. That'll be nice. I'll
Yeah.
get real loose.
You kept a very level, sober explanation, going through some very dense information. In
If we're going to continue doing this in my house, which I hope we do, well, I hope we do because then I can just get really,
you just
really
walk inside.
drunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
well,
yeah, if you like, I mean, we don't even know if we're putting out this trial episode, but if you like this trial episode, be sure to leave us a like and a rating on and a review rather on iTunes, because that helps us get discovered. And we definitely like if we're gonna do this, we would love to do it to a wider audience. So please rate us and review us
We have
and
a
recommend
Twitter.
us to your friends.
we have a Twitter.
Oh yeah, what's our Twitter?
It's the Goddamn Boys.
Goddamn boys.
Our name wasn't.
But the name of the
available.
podcast is.
The Boys and I, and you can tweet all of us individually with ideas or whatever too. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah, we'll put lower thirds with our names and tags. We got Ratchet Pussy Megazord, Joel Rubin _
Well, I mean, you're bread hungry. right?
It's like Hungry Hundarist.
Or Hungry
But
Hun- that's
you
what you
search Ratchet Pussy Megazord, you're gonna find it.
There's really only
There's
one
only-
Ratchet Pussy Megazord.
Ease of search.
Hungry Hundar, Joel Rubin. Yeah, we'll get to the fucking thing.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's there.
Yeah, we'll put it in the description below.
In the groin zone.
Thank you for watching and listening
Yeah.
with the boys and I.
There you
As
go.
we rambled on about a bunch of business stuff that probably 10%
old
of you
men.
care about. And we'll see you again real soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I'll see you in hell.